right, now I am ready to fully dive into Raider Week, and we're going to discuss what the Raiders can bring to try to upset the Kansas City Chiefs, and also why the Kansas City Chiefs are going to play their A game, and you should not be worried about a track game. But before we do get into any of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, to kick it off, we're going to start off with the Kansas City Chiefs injury report, and nothing new has changed on a notice of Harrison Butker. He did not participate. He did miss practice today, but Kansas City, they do have Matthew Wright, who did play extremely well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but let's hope he's not a one-hit wonder, and let's hope he proves us correct in going in that decision over Amendola, because that second game with Amendola is where we saw the struggle. So hopefully Matthew Wright can keep doing well and keep it pushing while we are missing Harrison Butker. Again, I do not know if Butker will miss this week, but it's leaning in that direction. If he didn't practice at all today, I anticipate the same thing for tomorrow as well. Unlike last week, he did participate in limited fashion, and then you could tell he was sore here and there, and then he just missed practice. I think this might extend all the way into bye week. Again, I do not know the severity of this injury. I do know it's his plant foot. I do know if you can't be stable on it, it's going to bug you throughout the season. So it's best to get him healthy and right headed into the cold days of the winter and into the playoffs too. And hopefully Matthew Wright can be a reliable kicker moving forward through that. And then also we have another, I don't know if it's an injury or not, but Creed Humphrey was missing. They did say it was a personal leave, so I don't think there's too much concern there, but it is due to note that he wasn't at practice. And then you have your limited participants in Trey Smith, McCole Hardman, and Mike Dana. And I think I'm missing someone else. If I am, I will pop it on the screen. But those guys were participating in limited fashion. Hopefully, they can continue to participate in limited fashion and then go into full participation going into Monday night. It's going to be exciting to see if they're all healthy. That means Kansas City will be fully healthy moving forward. And we also got news on an injured reserve guy in Trent McDuffie. He was at practice today, and Andy Reid mentioned that he can be back as early as against the Buffalo Bills week 6, and that is amazing news. I know it's what we all anticipated, but when people go on IR for the first 4 weeks or 4 weeks throughout their IR length, you just never know. You have to see how they're going, how practice looks, and that's going to be the same for Trent McDuffie. But to hear everything's looking good, that his hamstring is looking strong too, we're going to need him against the Bills, because he's going to have to put those clamps on either Stephon Diggs or Gabriel Davis. And I don't want to fast forward too much, but if the Kansas City Chiefs can pull off a W here and go 4-1 in Buffalo with missing a Willie Gay and a Trent McDuffie, this team is looking solid for a solid push in November, and that's something all Chiefs Kingdom should be excited to see. Now, we did have an acquisition, actually a surprising one, because none of Chiefs Kingdom, I don't think no one in the Chiefs media world even noticed either, was Chris Conley is back. I don't know when that signing happened or if it happened like yesterday and it was just like undercover, but everyone noticed he was at practice today. He wasn't at practice, but he was not media portion, but he was in the locker room, was moving around. He got his jersey number, he got his locker back, and we're just like, wait, what's going on here? He's back? For real? And honestly, I love the acquisition. I know it's a practice squad move, but in the future, if Kansas City ever decides to run with 6 wide receivers, I think Conley is a solid wide receiver number 6. We remember his time with Kansas City, and then he had small periods with the Jaguars and Houston, but in 1 year with Jacksonville, he had over 700 yards. So he is a reliable number 6 wide receiver. And it's funny because I even mentioned on Twitter too, I saw when he got released, but he got released the same day as Andy Isabella. Andy and Isabella caught my eye because I think he'd be someone who's very exciting in this offense and fits very well. And when it didn't happen, I was like, it is what it is. Like, he might not have produced much at all. And then you come in today and you see, hold up, Chris Conley back? I actually kind of like that move. So it's exciting to see. And they brought another familiar face a couple days ago with Marcus Kemp. So they're bringing old faces back. Good, solid pieces too. Marcus Kemp is a very solid special teams guy, which they brought him back after the Colts game. So that tells you yeah, they're trying to beef this special teams back up and make sure that does not cost another game. So that is great news to see moving forward. Now let's talk a little bit about the Las Vegas Raiders and what they're going to do Monday night to try to get a huge W and get back into this division race. And honestly, a lot of people are thinking that Kansas City is going to run away with this just because you're looking at a 1-3 record of the Las Vegas Raiders. But if you look at the games in depth and you look how the Raiders have been playing, yeah, it's been average at best, but at the same time, they have been in every game and they have been competing, and that is what the Raiders do best. They will compete and they will fight. Now, as of last year and prior years, Kansas City has had their way with the Raiders. So it's going to be interesting to see what Raider team we get going forward. But I'm going to mention some points on where the Raiders succeed very well and some things on how basically Kansas City can counter that. And right away, we're going to start with something very surprising, and it's the Raiders' run game. And they have a solid run game. It's weird. When you went into the season, you didn't know what kind of role Josh Jacobs was going to have on this team because in preseason, they didn't feature him much. And you just heard, oh, he's on the outs. He's not doing good with a new coaching staff. They like the new guys like Zamir White and the other rookies they were bringing aboard. Well, that story has changed completely because Josh Jacob is running like crazy. He is running like a man that is a contract year, and he had a huge day against the Broncos last week. And I can see the Raiders completely trying to change a game plan where they tend to, and I don't want to say it's completely like that, but they tend to try to win it through the air and battle Mahomes that way. They might try a ground and pound and basically, hey, let's keep the ball out of his hands and let's control it on the ground and see what Jacobs and Zamir White can bring. Jacobs has been very good this year, as I mentioned, and Zamir White as well. He's been a good change of pace type of back where once they bring Jacobs out, he comes in and it's like nothing changes as well. He's good in the screen game and he's a good receiving back that Kansas City really needs to focus on because if they don't, that's been the Kansas City MO where they have been got is they give up those 5-yard dump passes. Like they love to give the underneath up, but they won't get burned over the top. If the Raiders do that and manage all the way downfield and score touchdowns in this game, it might be a long day for the Chiefs defense. But again, this is where we're going to basically caveat and go back to one of the solid points of the Kansas City Chiefs has been surprisingly their rush defense. Yes, you can mention Tampa Bay only had 6 rush attempts. And if you wanted to look at a small sample package, that means the Kansas City Chiefs rush defense did amazing. But if you look at the first 4 weeks, Kansas City Chiefs rush defense has been stellar and surprising because it's something that was a big question mark coming into this season. And we didn't face the likes of nobody. Like I mentioned in my previous video, it's been James Conner, it's been Austin Eckler, it's been Jonathan Taylor, it's been Leonard Fournette, and they just been shutting guys up. And if Chris Jones in the line can break free and shut up Josh Jacobs, you're going to make Derek Carr try to win this game, and that's something I would love to see more. And he does have weapons, which we're going to get into, but I'd be more scared if the Raiders try to ground and pound this game and try to keep it away from Mahomes. That's why I hope it's another huge task, but I think this defense is up for it. They have faced great backs, and Jacobs is no different with how he's been running, but I think he can be stopped. It's going to be a battle of the trenches, and that should be one of the key matchups you should keep your eyes out for in this game. Now, we're going to stick on the Raiders' offense, and something that's been underwhelming for them is their receiving game, and they're getting a piece back in this game. Well, at least that's what it's trending towards. And Hunter Renfrow, he had his full first practice after his concussion, so he looks like he will be available. That means all guns a-blazing for the Raiders. They will have Devontae Adams, who is coming off his best game against the Broncos. Hunter Renfrow's back, and Darren Waller. Like I mentioned, receiving core full of names, but has been underperforming as of yet. And as I mentioned for the Chiefs secondary, last week was going to be their hardest task because Tom Brady was getting all their weapons back. And if you looked at the stats, yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs secondary got. But again, if you watched the game in full, they did what they needed to do. And I think what's going to come down to it is putting pressure on Derek Carr and making him throw passes he doesn't want to throw. That way you don't worry about a Devontae Adams going off, a Hunter Renfrow winning in the slot, and Darren Waller having his first big game of the year. They are going to get theirs. They are talented. They get paid the big bucks for a reason. But you have to win more snaps than what they win. And it's also going to be kind of interesting to see the position battles that go on. I think a lot of people are going to be upset, but you got to understand how the Kansas City Chiefs scheme their defense-wise. I think it's going to be L'Jarius Sneed going one-on-one against Hunter Renfrow. I know a lot of people want to see him go up against Adams, but I think Watson is going to draw that because Watson draws the outside coverage. So that's going to be a huge test for the rookie moving forward. His competition keeps getting higher and higher, and I think he has lived up to the bar. He did give up a touchdown against Mike Evans, but Mike Evans is a big body. Again, he's going to get his. But if you win some battles, hey, I will take it. And he did win some battles against Evans. He's got to put up a great fight now against the number one receiver in the NFL, and hopefully he doesn't go off. But again, you're going to have your safety coverage helping with the Thornhill and Justin Reed. Let's see how that goes. And then it's going to be interesting to see who draws Waller. He's going to be your wild card in all this because is it going to be, which I don't want to see, but Harris, he's going to be fully involved in this because this is going to be the guy that Willie Gay usually draws, at least in short areas, and then Justin Reed's going to pull off and deal with that. Or is it going to be a Fenton, which I don't know how comfortable I feel with that either. I think Waller is going to be your guy you need to zone in on because I like with Watson and Adams. I know a lot of people don't find that great, but I think he can hold his own. I like Sneed on Renfrow. It's going to be that matchup with Waller. Who's going to try to hold him down and make sure he doesn't go crazy? And in years past, he hasn't been going off. But it's a new year. Anything can happen. And Kansas City really needs to zone in on these weapons and get after Carr and make him make uncomfortable passes. And this might not even be a game like it usually is. Now we're going to switch sides of the ball, and we're going to focus on the Raiders' defense and what they do well and what they don't do well. And we're going to start on something kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs on what they surprisingly do well. If not average at best, but it's still really good. And their run defense, they have surprised a lot of people this year. They have been hard to run on. They're only averaging like 3.9 yards a carry. And it's something Kansas City has excelled well in. Now, with that, do I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to abandon the run? No, because honestly, it's looking like their new identity. And if CEH and Isaiah Pacheco continue to do really well, the Raiders can be in for a long day too. But also, don't just focus on these running backs in the run game. Now, if they end up popping off for 4 or 5 yards a carry, then yeah, they can manage the clock and control this game. But as we all know with CEH, and then we haven't seen too much with Isaiah Pacheco, if you could get him the ball out of the backfield and throw screen passes, and the Raiders are giving up 5 to 6 yards they catch to CEH, that's still as effective as a first down run. So just because the Chiefs might not be as successful in the run game in this one, they can still involve the running backs heavily to where it can give the Raiders headaches. Now, they got to watch out for, quote-unquote, their Raiders spy, which is Diablo, the safety. And honestly, I love that name. Like, it's a cool name. Even though he's on the Raiders, I love that name. But he has been stuffing running backs in the backfield, and he has basically been the spy where that's why the Raiders' rush defense has been very, very solid this year. Kansas City's going to have to watch out for that, and they're basically going to have to zone in on him. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I would, but if I was to call this game up, maybe you have more of a 2-back set. It's something Kansas City doesn't do a lot, but hey, throw that off to where Diablo's going to have to either zone in on CEH and Isaiah Pacheco, and then you just give a handoff to hopefully the guy he's not covering and pick up more yardage that way. It's going to be interesting to see how the Kansas City Chiefs try to manage the run game, if they stay fully involved in it, or if they kind of back off and focus on your boy Mahomes, which now we're going to get into that. The Raiders' pass defense, it is bottom tier, and you'll love to see it. You love to hear about it, honestly, because when you initially hear about it, you think, okay, Mahomes is going to have a big day. Again, I'm not going to get too in over myself as well with that. It's still very early in the season, and the Raiders can present a pass rush, even though it has been basically invisible so far this year. Besides Max Crosby, who had 2 sacks last week, it has been absent. Chandler Jones has 4 quarterback hits so far this year, no sacks. Do I see that trend continue? No. But I also hope it doesn't liven up against the Kansas City Chiefs. That means whoever Chandler Jones is drawing, whether it be Orlando Brown, whether it be Andrew Wiley, he has got to be guarded at all costs, because last thing you want is Mahomes to be scrambling for his life trying to make a play. Honestly, if I was to envision it right now, just like years past, which Andrew Wiley has drawn this matchup, and he has done very well in it, was against Max Crosby. I expect Max Crosby to be on your right side, and I expect Chandler Jones to be on your left side. That means Orlando Brown Jr., time to hold it down and make that bag and earn that money. Because last thing you want is Chandler Jones to get his first sack. Mahomes has been good at stepping up in the pocket and with his awareness as well. But again, like I mentioned, last thing you want is Mahomes to be running for his life and to be hit all day. But if the line can hold their own, and I did mention a few injuries, which I think they will be active in this game, which will be huge. But if the line holds their own, that means Mahomes will have days to pick apart this secondary, which can get got. And then we're going to dive right into this when we talk about the Raiders secondary is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers might have their first big day of the year. And I'm hoping so. Since it's Showtime on prime time, he can go all out. Juju has livened up, MVS has livened up, and it's just a week-by-week thing. Like I said, this is something you got to be very, very patient with. This playbook takes a long time to learn, specifically for wide receivers. And now that you're seeing them start getting involved, it's going to be exciting to see how this just basically evolves week in and week out. And I also think keep your eyes out for Sky Moore. We saw some positive things last week. We saw the snap count rise, and I think it's just going to continue to rise the more he impresses. And also, with McCole Hardman dealing with the heel injury and he doesn't seem like 100%, you might as well throw the kid out there more, and then Justin Watson too. I think this is a game where I'm going to talk more in my predictions is the wide receivers can go crazy if Mahomes has time to get him the ball, and that is something I'm excited to see because I'm tired of hearing the bash like, oh, these wide receivers on the Kansas City Chiefs aren't living up to what they need to. They're bad. They miss Tyreek Hill. It's none of that. This is football. It's not easy to learn, specifically Andy Reid's playbook. Give it some time. And with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I am going to wrap this video up. Let me know some things that the Las Vegas Raiders might concern you with just a little bit where they can make this a game. I think this will be a better game than in last year's past. I think this can be very competitive, and Raiders have been known in past to make these games competitive. Another standpoint that I want to mention too, and I know Kansas City has won since then, but I do believe they do not want to lose at home against this team, and they hold pride on it. Yes, I know John Gruden's not there, but they still remember that, and they do not want this team winning in their house and definitely on prime time. But with that, like I mentioned, let me know some things you're keeping your eyes out for this game, and I'm going to close this off. But before I do, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and give me that big thumbs up and like this video. As always, I do appreciate all the support. I will be checking out. Y'all take care.